presentation today is Grants 101, the basics to getting your grant funded. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am professor of ESL, English as a Second Language and Bilingual Education at Texas Women's University. I was sharing with our first table right here that I'm about to start my 14th year there at Texas Women's University. And I'm about to wrap up my first year as full professor there. So, you know, it's not the end of the road, right? Full professorship. I think it's an opportunity to continue to grow. And in my journey working as an academic at Texas Women's University, my academic life started off as a teacher and a writer. I wrote for publication. And then there was another chunk of tasks to do that were not spelled out to me during the interview process. But after I got hired, I realized, you know, I needed to write grants. So here we go. And I was placed in a type of sink or swim type situation where I really had to learn by doing. And I had been involved with grants in my previous life as a graduate assistant at Texas A&M University, College Station. So I helped develop some sections of grants, program development grants, and I helped out with running, you know, several aspects of those grants. So I had some idea of what grants were all about, but I had never, ever written a proposal by myself. So here I am, a brand new assistant professor who cannot say no, you know, when it comes to responsibilities that are placed on you. And what you are getting today is a summary of all those lessons that I learned through the years. Let's begin with, and everybody has a copy of the handout, correct? Okay, good. So we have program development grants and we have research grants. By show of hands, how many of us here are working or are expected to be working in the near future in a grant of some sort? Okay, thank you. By show of hands, how many of us are currently working on a grant proposal? All right. Now, those of us who are already working on a grant proposal, is our proposal a program development grant proposal? Over here we have a different kind, right? What kind is it? A research grant, okay. Who's the potential grantor? Okay, that's a tough one, okay. The strategies, it really is. I mean, it's always been a challenge with IES to get a grant awarded. And in times when the funding may not completely be there, then the stakes are higher. But I can share some pieces of information and tips on IES grants. The bulk of my experience with grants has to do with program development grants or project grants within a Department of Teacher Education. So in a nutshell, what these grants did, and all of them federal grants, what these grants did was they paid for scholarships, you know, tuition fees, book fees maybe, for students to enroll in our program. And so my institution committed to preparing those students and certifying them as teachers in high need areas. So you get a picture of what, you know, kinds of grants I wrote during my professional life. And so I'll be sharing examples from my experience with teacher preparation programs, but know that the strategies that I'm about to outline for you really apply to a diverse body of grant proposals, research proposals included. So, how do you start by getting yourself in trouble? You know, you already decided you're going to write a proposal, and some of you are working on a proposal or planning on writing a proposal. Well, now that you know you're going to write a proposal, where do you find potential grantors? Okay? So I've asked people through the years, you know, how did you learn about that competition or, you know, that particular grant you're writing is part of what competition? And people usually, people in the area of grant writing, you know, will usually say one of these two. So it's either grants.gov, and they're looking at federal grants. The government has 26 agencies, and I just listed some of them here, but there are 26 agencies that offer grant opportunities for you. So the guidelines are spelled out in grants.gov. You have the request for applications, and you know you can read about what's required in those proposals. All this information is public because these are federal, you know, grants. So all that information is public. You can look up past competitions, requests for proposals, or requests for applications for previous competitions, and you know you can take a look at what's happening right now. What kinds of proposals is the government? What kinds of proposals does the government have open at this time? So grants.gov is one. And then when it comes to monies from foundations, the Foundation Center is an important and a huge hub for information on monies that come from foundations. This is a picture from their website, and so I encourage you to look up the foundation directory online. There you can find information on over 140,000 U.S. foundations, and as well as other donors worldwide. You are going to find a lot of information about these foundations and the kinds of grants that they're interested in offering. At this website, there is a basic search that you can run just by registering to the foundationcenter.org. But you are going to quickly find out that the best way to get customized results is by paying a fee. So they have three different kinds of fees for people who are interested in more focused searches. So take a look at what they offer, but it's definitely the way to go if you don't want to spend time looking on Google. Okay, if you look on Google, it's probably going to take a long time. Here, you find a customized way of learning about all those foundations and the types of competitions available. So I really encourage those two hubs for information on grants. Now, when it comes to project grants, project or program development grants are certainly different from research grants, right? When it comes to program development grants or project grants, you put together an idea of a project, you describe that idea, you describe the needs you have, the needs you're going to address, you prepare a budget, and you submit it for grantor's consideration, right? That is a project development grant. When it comes to research grants, then there is a similarity between project grants and research grants. However, we all know that it's very difficult to get a research grant. And some of the reasons are the availability of funding is not the same as program development grants. So if you take a look at, say, the federal government, for instance, there's way more money for project development grants than there is for research grants. So to begin with, availability of funding. That's one issue. And second, because the funding is not the same as, the kind of funding we have for project development grants, the guidelines for judging the merit of proposals are very demanding, and people who apply for research grants really need to be at the cutting edge of their disciplines. And people who are the cutting edge of their disciplines are well known by the US government and by the reviewers as well. So just be mindful of that. If you are an assistant professor, maybe an associate professor who's interested in writing a research grant, then the best way to go is to be part of a team that might have already had success with a research grant before. So try to find those folks. Who are they? I'm going to tell you one tip. Quite possibly, those folks are going to be at other universities in other different states from yours. So very seldom will a team from a single university be awarded a research grant, just because people, the cut edge of their disciplines may be all over the place. So find that team, start collaborating with that team, and try to be part of their effort, okay? So the roadmap for securing funding through a research grant tends to be also convoluted, very, very convoluted. And so, okay, our agenda. So what items will we cover here? We're going to start by talking about logic models. And then I'm going to share with you some strategies for success. The strategies go from planning the grant proposal to getting the project funded and beyond, okay? And then we're going to talk about most common errors we need to avoid when developing a proposal. So the information I'm sharing with you here will apply to project development grants and research grants as well. So logic models. Wouldn't that be simple to say, just give us the money, right? And we all win. That's my logic. That's my logic right here. Just give me the money. It's not as simple as that. Logic models actually consist of three main components. So first we have our inputs. When you're thinking about a project or a research grant, you need to think about the resources that you will bring to the table, right? So what kinds of resources do you have to accomplish your goals? And here we're talking about human resources. So who do you have? Who's a resource that's going to help you develop that project and run that project? What's the technology? What are the assets that you have? So those are the inputs. We also have the outputs. So when we talk about outputs, we talk about the kinds of things that you will do with those resources. So what are some activities that you will need to do with your resources, your inputs, to make that project possible? So what are the activities, and then what services will you provide and to whom, right? In my case with the Department of Teacher Education, the people receiving our services, of course, were who? Our teachers or students, right? People who come to our teacher preparation program to get a master's degree or to get a certification in teaching. And then your outcomes. It's important also to outline what you expect to accomplish. What will happen? So when you put those resources and your services and the people who will receive your services together, what do you want to accomplish? That's what we call outcomes. And so if you want a single pager describing your project, you probably will list your inputs next to your outputs, and then you will give details as to your outcomes. Now, this logic model is really a very basic visual representation of your project. You can write that, you start drafting that on a napkin or on a piece of paper, pen and paper, or your computer, and just start thinking about the elements that will need to come into play to make that project possible. My recommendation, and if I can draw your attention to the screen over here, my recommendation is to use a reverse logic. And what that means is start with a goal in mind. So what do you want to accomplish? What are those outcomes, whether short-term, medium-term, or long-term outcomes? What do you want to accomplish? What is that you want to see happening? From there, think about the activities that you will put together, the people who need to participate in those activities, and then think about the resources that you need to have. Does that make sense? So start with the end in mind. What is it that I want to accomplish? All right, so moving on. In summary, our logic model elements are our context, right? So where are we coming from? Who are we? Where are we? What are our needs, right? That is, those elements pertain to the context. Your resources or inputs, your activities and participation, your outputs, your intended change, that's your outcomes, the beliefs you have about your work, those are your assumptions, and then any influencing variables, right? Your external factors. So if we put it all together, in your proposal, you will begin by stating your context and need. So this is who we are, right? These are the resources we bring to the table. These are the kinds of activities that we're going to do, and these are the people who will benefit from those activities. And then from there, what are our outcomes? It's important in grants, especially those grants that are long-term grants, to specify short, medium, and long-term outcomes. And this is exactly what will drive the evaluation of your project. We'll talk about project evaluation in just a second. Okay, so from here on out, we're going to discuss strategies for successful completion of your proposal. So if I can draw your attention to the screen, I'm going to be showing this graphic several times. And we're going to read this graphic clockwise, like that. Okay? So we're going to start with some tips and strategies for proposal planning. Right there. We're going to start right at 12. So for proposal planning, my strategies for you: don't wait to focus on the requests for applications you will participate in. Don't wait for that. Rather, get a copy of the previous grant proposal that was out there from the grantor. You want to study what was requested before, because chances are many of those guidelines will repeat themselves, maybe with a different focus, maybe with a different list of may-dos or suggestions, but the majority of the guidelines from past competitions are probably going to be present in the new competition. So study what the grantor has requested in the past as soon as you can. And you can, those of you wanting to plan a grant starting tonight, you can go on Google and start looking for that request of applications, the most recent you can get your hands on, okay? So find that request for applications. Next, draft a logic model. In other words, put together a one-pager describing your whole project. That includes inputs, outputs, and outcomes, right? And make sure, as you develop that one-pager, that you're adhering to the request for applications. If there's no current one for that particular grantor, then play around with the request for applications they had most recently. As you are thinking about your project, and what happens after you start drafting a logic model, you draft your model, and it becomes a work in progress. You travel with that sheet in your car. You probably bring it along with you when you go to the supermarket, and you start writing on it, modifying it. It's kind of a work in progress. As you do all that, also think about your partners. What kinds of partners will you secure to help you run that project and to arrive at success? When it comes to grants, whether research grants or project development grants, the name of the game is collaboration. So grantors want to know for sure that there's some collaboration, some partnership of some kind going on. And as they read the proposal, they want to read that commitment from the different partners. I'm also a grant reviewer, grant proposal reviewer for the U.S. Department of Education. And so it is very evident when we have our conversations or panel discussions to judge the merit of proposals, it's very evident when partnerships are not there, or partnerships may be there in name only, right? Because as you read the proposal, there's not substantiated claims for partnership. So make sure you secure those grantors, and you also start discussing about the level of commitment that you have. With respect to proposal planning, the very first section of your proposal will be your discussion on project's needs. So this is where you introduce yourself to the grantor and say, hey, this is who I am. These are our needs. And you fit in our project perfectly because you can help us meet this need and this need. In my case, with project development grants and focusing on teacher preparation, the name of the game has always been partnerships with school districts. So we made a case by saying, hey, we are working with Dallas ISD and Fort Worth ISD, independent school districts. And guess what? We have a shortage of bilingual teachers. We have a shortage of science teachers and math teachers. So here's where you, federal government, come in and can help us address this need in, our public education system in the North Texas area. Does that make sense? So be ready to spell out your project's needs. Also, very important, identify potential competitors. And who are the people who are going to compete that you know? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Very important for us to know who they are and what do they bring to the table. Where are they lacking? And this also goes hand in hand with my next strategy, because based on that information you got about potential competitors, you can delineate the ways in which your project is unique or could be unique. What makes you different from those competitors? What makes you worthy of the money? Does that make sense? So we need to spell out novel ideas that make us unique. When writing the proposal, Concentrate on the quality of your project, not on the number of pages you're filling out. As a matter of fact, when it comes to grant proposals, you really need to be very straightforward and you need to go to the point. Reviewers do not appreciate receiving a lot of fillers in those proposals, chunks of information that might not be connected. So stay away from that. Focus on the quality of the proposal by following the RFA to the letter, and do not worry about page numbers. Now, some grantors will also tell you about number of pages. Some of them have a limit to the number of pages you can fill out, and they'll tell you the font size and margins and all those kinds of things as well. So make sure you pay attention to that. I mentioned this, following the RFA, the request for proposals to the letter, is essential. The request for applications is not a menu for us to pick and choose what we want to address. Grantors are very particular about your paying attention to what's expected, so follow those RFAs to the letter. If paying attention to detail is not one of your strengths, and I know it's not one of mine, have a second set of eyes. Look at what you are writing and make sure that you are following all those guidelines in the request for applications. Also, I learned through the years that giving the reviewers additional signposts from the traditional signposts you use in a proposal, your headings and subheadings, those are signposts. In my head I thought, okay, I need to help these reviewers like my proposal. I need to help them like my proposal and stay focused on my proposal. How can I do it? How can I do things differently to make that happen? And I decided, additional signposts. So I know you cannot read this. I was not expecting you to read this, but there might be a chance that you can tell the different kinds of ways I have used bold and underlined text and then just regular text, right, to make those specific sections of my narrative pop up, right? So don't be shy about, stay consistent though. So once you decide on using bold or using underlined text or whatnot, just stay consistent with your choices, and by all means, do not be shy about helping the reader out, helping them stay focused on your proposal. So that's signposts there. Okay, we're now at 2 o'clock right here, and we're going to talk about strategies for the writing of the proposal. So you're done with the planning stage, you're now going to start writing. When it comes to proposal writing, we're going to be concentrating on 3 parts of your proposal. So writing your project design, your project evaluation, and your project management. So let's see what strategies we have here. So for project design, when you write that section of your proposal that calls for the description of your project design, be sure that you adhere to your one-pager, your logic model. So don't forget that sheet where you described your project in 1 page, okay? Make sure the project design adheres to the objectives, the goals, the outcomes that you spelled out when you design that logic model. Also, when it comes to your goals and objectives, make sure they're measurable and make sure they are clear. Consider the may-dos that are included in the request for applications and try to incorporate those may-dos into your writing. Sometimes grantors will say in their request for applications, applicants may do this. Applicants may offer these services, or applicants may consider this and that. All those are keywords for, hey, you may get additional points if you give me what I'm telling you you may do. So we're not requiring anything, but you get additional points if you address certain may do's in the request for application. So take that into account. Sure. Let me see if I can remember from a project proposal that we wrote in the past. Okay, so with respect to the preparation of teachers, in my department, the area where I work, we concentrate on the preparation of English as a second language teachers and bilingual education teachers, so ESL and bilingual education. One request for proposals fit or area of need for bilingual education and ESL, and they also mentioned, and applicants may also consider the preparation of math teachers. Hey, the next day I was knocking on the math department's door. Hey, do you want to work with us, right? So, and we got that grant, because we followed one of those may do's. So pay attention to those, and if it's possible for you to comply with those may do's, by all means, go ahead and incorporate those may do's into the proposal. Who knows? Maybe, by incorporating those may do's, that will set you apart from the crowd. Thank you for your question. Also, when you describe your project design, the grantor will want to know the ways in which you have thought about supplementing their funds. So the grantor will give you some money, and are there any resources that you will bring to the table? Will the university be donating staff time, or resources of some kind, or some sort of technology, right? So what kinds of things could supplement the grantor's funds? Grantors look very favorably upon those supplemental monies that will be used in your project. Grantors also pay attention to whether or not you have thought about the sustainability of your project after after funding ends. So in the case of, say 5-year grants, right? You get money during 5 years. Coming up with a plan to sustain the project that you created after the federal funding is gone, is going to be a plus in your proposal, and the federal government will look favorably upon that, because in their minds, well, hey, we're giving them money for 5 years, and then at the end of those 5 years, they found a way to continue doing what they're doing. So that sounds like a good investment. Does that make sense? So how can we supplement those monies? Well, maybe you are consistently trying to bring in private monies from foundations. That's one way that you can supplement your funds. And maybe you have even been successful in the past with a foundation. So those are kinds of things that you need to describe in your proposal. You can tell the federal government, for instance, we've been lucky securing funds from foundation A, B, or C, right? And we plan on doing this, continue to do this, etc. So sustainability is important. And then you want to have a heart-to-heart with the key people that you're going to be working with as you run your project. And you're going to think hard about the kinds of things that can go wrong in your project. What are some potential issues or problems that you could have? What are those? Describe those problems in your proposal, and then also describe the ways you will go about addressing those potential issues or problems. So your grantor will want to know that you're ready to run this project, and you know your project so well, you know about those things that can go wrong, right? Okay. Project evaluation. It's important that you align your project evaluation with your project design. And by that I mean, if in the project design you talked about two main goals, and under each goal you talked about two objectives, right? So we have a total of 2 goals in the project design and 4 objectives. If that's what you have in the project design, your project evaluation should have the same structure. So in the project evaluation part of your proposal, describe for your grantor how you're going to evaluate the objectives that you described in the project design, right? So if we have a total of 4 objectives in the project design, then we need to tell the grantor the ways we will evaluate those 4 objectives in the project evaluation part of the proposal. So that alignment is key. If you forget an objective in the project evaluation part of your proposal, chances are you're going to get a very low score on the evaluation part of that proposal. All the elements really need to be in place, so pay attention to that. It's important to include formative evaluation in your narrative. Summative evaluation is part of what you're going to read in your request for application, so you will need to address the way you're going to evaluate project performance by the end of the grant. But in addition to that, you need to, it helps a lot when you describe your formative evaluation, not only summative, also formative. And with respect to evaluation, I highly encourage the participation of an external evaluator. A lot of projects have no problem securing the participation of an internal evaluator, and that is good. Nothing against internal evaluators. What will strengthen your proposal a lot is also the participation of an external evaluator. So having 2 points of view with respect to evaluation, that's always helpful. An internal perspective and then an external perspective as well. Let's go to project management. So in this part of the proposal, your grantor will get information on the ways you're going to manage the project, right? Okay, so we need to define responsibilities of key staff participating in the grant, and we want to include those timelines and milestones as well. Also, be sure to describe the time commitment of key personnel and make sure that that time commitment is adequate. Now, I know you cannot read this, but I'm going to draw your attention to a few sections here on this chart. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we have a question in the back? No, okay. All right. So, when we got feedback on our proposals, reviewers really liked this chart. So this is the reason I took a picture of it and I just pasted it on my PowerPoint, because I want to share what they liked. I want to share with you what they liked. Okay, so it's a time commitment chart. And so what we have is, if you take a look at the screen, we have the name of, one of the key personnel, in this case, co-directors, right beside table 4. So we're describing the time commitment of co-directors on this grant, right? Next, we have our goal listed here. And right here, we're listing the responsibilities that are related to this particular position, co-director. So we have, on the far right side, we have a column for the TWU co-director, and then an F for the Fort Worth ISD co-director. Then on top of these columns here, to the right, we have year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and 5, etc. And this is a visual representation that tells me that, for example, producing coursework and training guides is an activity that's going to take place only in year 1, because all of these are zeros, so that's not happening in years different from 1. And the TW partner will contribute 30 days to that, and the Fort Worth partner will contribute 24 days to that. Does that make sense? So this is a visual representation that gives rich information and rich details as to the level of commitment that we have, among key personnel in our project. So this was the table for co-directors, and we had one for the grant coordinator, we had another one for graduate assistants, etc. So this is an example here, and I hope it is of help. Final touches. Yes. Yes. My cue. It's my cue.
No, I have a question.
Oh, okay.
You still have plenty of time. On that chart, the 24 days, 30 days, is that 24 hours times 30 days, or 8 hours?
8 hours.
Okay.
Right, 8 hours a day. So multiply that by 8, that's the number of hours. Yes?
Sorry, it was in my Sorry.
And do you go down and make sure that you have approximately the correct number of days per person?
Oh, certainly.
So you're going by each goal, and you're adding up from all those goals.
It all needs to add up. So it helps a lot if you create this on Excel. Okay. Exactly.
Thank you.
Good questions. Good questions. Do you have any more questions? Yes.
Maybe it's as much a comment as a question, but this also is going to help you with your budget. So when you're doing the budget, how many days are you budgeting for each kind of personnel for each year in your project? And
right.
I think the mistake maybe I've made sometimes in the past is put this kind of thing in the budget narrative, but not in the project narrative. You're saying put this in the project narrative, right?
Right. And you may want to also include it in the budget narrative if there's room for that. Maybe in the budget narrative you could make reference to the table in the management plan, right? And just describe using paragraphs. That's what I would do in the budget section of the proposal. So describe it in paragraph form in the budget narrative, and leave the visuals for the project management part of the proposal. But you're absolutely right, and everything needs to come together. In this particular proposal, part of the in-kind contribution that the university and the school district partners had was a considerable amount of time, from our time. So in other words, money that we were paid by the university or the school district, part of our time as employees at these two institutions would be spent working on this grant. So in the end, you're absolutely right. Everything needs to make sense together. Okay, and as far as your final touches for your proposal, this is important, right? My favorite is this one here. Every time you make a typo, the errorists win. So, final touches. That has to do with having multiple sets of eyes on your proposal and making sure we don't have grammatical errors or spelling errors of any kind. That is really important. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Really and truly, applicants cannot be penalized for typos or grammatical errors. There are no guidelines, at least when it comes to the federal government, that call for penalties on issues of this kind. However, as an insider, a reviewer in several competitions, and based on discussions I've had with panelists, judging also the same proposals I was judging, it rubs reviewers the wrong way when you have typos, grammatical errors, and things like that. And although they cannot penalize you, their perspective on your proposal can be impacted negatively. How about that? Okay, so we want to stay away from those errors. Now, what other final touches? Okay, make sure, I talked about several sets of eyes on your proposal. Make sure some of those sets of eyes also check on the congruence among the different sections of your proposal. So if your proposal has gone through several iterations, and some of them do, because remember, a proposal, the name of the game when writing a proposal is collaboration. And sometimes collaborators, in our case, the university and the school district, we're not seeing eye to eye all the time. So parts of the proposal had to be changed. No, it was not going to be 40 teachers, it's going to be 20 teachers the first year. No, it was not going to be math and science, only math. You see what I mean? So all these conversations impact the proposal, and certain aspects of the proposal change over time. It's a work in progress till it's done. So it's important that once you are getting ready to wrap it up, you have people reading your proposal and making sure it flows smoothly from beginning to end. So the number of goals that I have in, the project design and the objectives that I have there are also the same goals and objectives that I have in the program evaluation, and the staff people that I talked about in project management are also the kinds of people that I describe in my budget narrative. Does that make sense? So make sure you have all that in place. Also, have readers, preferably outside your area of expertise, read the proposal so that they can give you feedback on the way that you wrote that proposal based on the request for applications. So basically what you're going to do is give those 3 people outside your area of expertise 2 documents. One is a request for applications. The second one is your proposal. And you tell them, could you read this and let me know if you understand my proposal and whether that proposal is adhering to what the grantor wants me to do. Okay? It's very helpful when you give these readers that task and not look for typos, grammatical errors, and things like that. It helps a lot when you help them focus on, just tell me if, make recommendations to improve my proposal based on the RFA. That's it. Do not complicate the reader's job, especially if you're not going to pay them for their services. So make it simple. These 3 readers really need to be looking at the way your proposal adhered to that request for applications. That's as far as final touches. And we talked about the typos. So then you submit your proposal, right? You're ready, you wrapped it up, you're excited, you submit your proposal, and you wait, right? It's not a quick response. More often than not, it takes a long time. And then you get a letter. You get a notification. And your letter includes the dreaded phrase, "We regret to inform you." I got so many letters, so many of those, before I got my first proposal awarded. It hurt my ego, especially the first one. The first one was difficult to accept. But it's there, and they did not award that money to you. You were rejected. It's tough. I'm going to tell you something. The second time I was rejected, I think I was rejected 4 times before I got my proposal, my first proposal ever in my life. The second time I was rejected, it didn't feel as bad. The third time, I was like, okay. The fourth time, I'm like, fine, you know. And the recuperation time did not take us long, as you know, time went by. So it happens. And I would say, if this is your first time writing a proposal, just expect rejection. It just helps so much on a psychological level. Expect rejection. Not once, not twice, maybe 3 times or more. If you're a normal human being, as you know, most of us are, then chances are, yeah, it's going to be up to like 3, 4 times, you know, to finally get a proposal awarded. So learning from rejection. An unsuccessful proposal is not a failure. It is certainly not a failure. So the first thing I want to say is take that letter of rejection, you know, feel sorry for however long it takes you. Hopefully it's just going to be a few days. But if you want to take the week, it's fine. After that, just consider that proposal that did not get accepted as a draft that you're going to use for your next submission. So look at the positive in all of it, and the positive in all of it is you have partners who have agreed to work with you, who will very likely want to work with you again. Yeah, there are some things that maybe could have been done better, so let's find out what those things are. This is an important strategy right there. If you did not apply for a federal grant, then there's no guarantee that you will get feedback on your proposal. So if you did not get any feedback, do whatever you can to call the project officer and have a good attitude when you do this. So certainly do not call the day you get that letter. Just let it sit for a while, and later on, yeah, give them a call. Stand up, smile, and don't sit down, and be very friendly. Say thank you, even though you got rejected. You're going to say thank you. Thank you for considering my proposal. I am excited to submit another proposal, and I would like to know your recommendation for making my proposal stronger. What kinds of things can I do better? Could you tell me? More often than not, they will tell you exactly what kinds of things you can improve in your proposal. That may be during that same phone call, or they'll follow up with an email of some sort. But be persistent. If you participated in a federal grant, then all the feedback from reviewers will arrive your way, okay? So you resubmit. And when thinking about resubmission, it's important to broaden your horizons a little bit and then think about other potential grantors that you could consider. So you could certainly go back to the grantor that rejected you, and provided that you change your proposal, that you modify it, that you improve it, right, okay, go back and submit to that particular grantor once again. You may either do that or try another avenue. If you went for a federal proposal, why not go to a foundation? And vice versa, right? So consider potential grantors, other potential grantors. One thing you should never ever do is submit the rejected proposal to your grantor a second time. That is a no-no. Nothing wrong with improving my proposal substantially and then resubmitting. Nothing wrong with that. But resubmitting the same deal that got rejected, not a good idea. So you improve your proposal, right? You submit again, and you wait. exciting. We got it. We got the grant. So you get the letter you always wanted. We're pleased to inform you. You get so excited. You got it funded. Well, I have news for you. Get excited and then get a little bit afraid because, oh my gosh. The lady's saying I'm a fiction writer in the grant proposal genre. One thing is to write the proposal. A different thing is to run a successful project. So you were successful with the first part. You wrote it, they believed you, they gave you the money. But now the money's coming in. You really need to start running that project the way you said you would. And if you have partners, you need to communicate that excitement to those partners because you want it to be a big, happy family and you want every single goal and objective that you outlined accomplished, right? Okay, so some suggestions. Sorry about that. Some suggestions for after you get that good letter. Develop relationships with your funders, whether they are a foundation or the federal government. You develop good relationships. How do you do that? You invite them for coffee? Not really. What that means, you develop good relationships, you are on email every hour of the day. If they send you emails asking for information, how are things going? You don't want to take a week to respond to them. You want to preferably respond within 24 hours. So be sure you are on email. That's one way to create a good relationship with the funders. Say thank you. Say thank you to the funders and acknowledge their award publicly. What does that mean? Use social media, use your website, and publicly display the outcome of the competition. You know, you won this award, and who is your grantor, and you know specifics about your grant. This is what the grantor wants to see. You know, also keep in touch while running the project. What does that mean? Okay, the grantor, depending on who they are, the federal government or a foundation, they will want to hear from you regarding how the project is going. And they do that by requesting reports, whether annual reports, biannual reports, and or final reports. So make sure you comply with those reports in a timely manner. You never want to be late turning in those reports. And we're going to wrap up now with the most common errors that I have found as a grant reviewer. So what kinds of things are really common? Unsubstantiated project needs. So you write a beautiful project, but you do not explain what your needs are. Okay? Number 4, mismatched goals, objectives, and activities. So your goals are talking about something, the objectives are talking about something else, and the activities are not related to either one of those. Number 3, mismatched project design and evaluation. Those fail to go hand in hand. Error number 2, description of a partnership of 1. And error number 1, vague, non-measurable objectives, right? So objectives you cannot really measure or quantify.
Yeah.